I'm Aurelia Hart, 28 years old, acting teacher in Los Angeles. I have always believed that a stage reveals more truth than a living room ever could. Maybe that sounds dramatic, but when you spend your life teaching actors how to expose their deepest wounds under bright lights, you start to recognize lies, even in the softest family smiles. And yet, knowing all of that, I still wasn't prepared for the quiet violence of an empty chair. If you love real-life stories, chilling revenge, and dark family secrets, hit that subscribe button. Now you're about to step into a world where the truth is far more terrifying than fiction. Emma's 5th birthday was supposed to be small. Just a few of our friends from the neighborhood. A pink cake she chose herself, and the miniature stage I'd built in our backyard so she could perform like Mommy, my daughter, Emma Hart, 4 years old, and with a laugh that could soften the coldest day in Los Angeles, was the only reason I had ever tried to forgive my parents at all. She deserved a family bigger than the two of us, and my husband Liam. She deserved grandparents who remembered her name without checking their calendar. The sun dipped low, casting gold over the strings of lights I had hung earlier. The cake sat perfectly in the center of the table. Strawberry because Emma had whispered, "It's pink, like my dreams, Mommy." And next to it were the 2 empty chairs I had reserved for my parents, Linda and George. I placed those chairs with care, believing foolishly that they would actually show up this year. They didn't. 5 o'clock passed, then 5:15. At 5:30, I finally accepted it. I kept smiling for Emma as she twirled on her little stage, but inside my chest something sharp twisted. Not anger, not even surprise, just that familiar bruise of being the daughter they never chose. I felt Liam step behind me. Liam Hart, my husband, a cinematographer with gentle eyes, slid his arms around my waist. "They're not coming, are they?" he whispered. I shook my head. "No again." "They don't deserve her," he murmured. I smiled without warmth. They never deserved me either. I walked toward the stage as Emma finished her performance, a short dance where she pretended to be a butterfly escaping a jar. She bowed dramatically. Everyone clapped. She ran into my arms, smelling like frosting and sunlight. "Mommy, did Grandma and Grandpa get lost?" she asked. There it was, the question I had prayed she wouldn't ask. I knelt down, "Sweetheart. Maybe they're busy today." How many times had I said those exact words when I was a child? How many times had I swallowed disappointment and called it understanding? I kissed Emma's forehead and told her to go play with her friends. But my hands trembled. I needed a moment, just one moment, to gather myself. So I walked into the kitchen, leaned against the counter, and closed my eyes. And like I often taught my acting students, I whispered to myself, "Breathe in, breathe out, deeper and deeper, focus on my voice. Aurelia, let the noise fade, let the truth rise." A technique of controlled self-hypnosis. A ritual that steadied me when memories threatened to swallow me whole. When I opened my eyes again, I was ready, or so I thought. I heard a phone ding from the living room. Someone, maybe one of the guests, said, "Oh wow, look at this." Curious, I stepped out to see what had caught their attention, and my world cracked open. On the screen of a friend's phone was a Facebook post, not from a stranger but from my brother Jason. My older brother, the golden child of our family. Jason Hart, CEO of a tech startup in Silicon Valley, father of a daughter and walking embodiment of every praise my parents had never given me. The post showed a lavish birthday celebration with gold balloons, a designer cake, and the unmistakable faces of my parents smiling proudly. Caption: "Happy birthday to our beloved granddaughter. A special gift from Grandma and Grandpa. A $100,000 savings account for your future. Our little princess deserves the world." My vision blurred, not from tears, those had dried years ago, but from the violent clarity of betrayal sharpening itself in my mind. $1 million. On the very same day they couldn't drive 40 minutes to see Emma blow out 5 pink candles. Someone whispered beside me, $1 million, that's insane." I walked away before anyone could look at my face long enough to see the crack spreading across it. Inside, the air tasted bitter. Liam followed me again, worry etched in every line of his face. "Aurelia," he said softly, touching my arm. "I know this hurts." "This isn't hurt." I cut in, my voice cold as stage metal. This is clarity. He hesitated. What are you going to do? I looked at him, at the man who had filmed my darkest plays, who had seen me guide actors into emotional abysses and bring them back whole. He knew the answer before I said it. I'm going to turn our lives into a stage, I murmured, and they will play their parts whether they want to or not. He blinked. Aurelia. You know what my parents love the most? I asked. Image, reputation. The perfect family narrative. Liam stayed silent. He knew I was right. So I'll give them exactly what they love. A project, a performance, a chance to show the world their perfect family. And when the spotlight hits them, the truth they've buried for decades will crawl out for everyone to see. He breathed out slowly. You're talking about a show? Yes, I whispered. A documentary theater project, and they'll agree to join because they can't resist being admired. And Jason, a shadow crossed my expression. Jason will join too. He won't be able to stand the idea of being left out of the spotlight. Liam nodded. And you'll expose them. Not expose, I corrected softly. Reveal. I moved toward the back door and watched Emma spin with a paper crown on her head, laughing with her friends. My heart clenched again. My child who wanted so little yet was given even less by the people meant to love her. I won't let her grow up thinking she is less than anyone, I whispered. You won't, Liam said. But I wasn't reassured, not yet. Because the truth was, every time my parents favored Jason, every time they dismissed my achievements, every time they ignored my birthdays while throwing elaborate parties for him, a part of me had shrunk just enough to survive. Not anymore. I straightened my back. I felt the shift inside me, a familiar one, like stepping onto a stage after weeks of rehearsing. A sense of power, of direction. A sense that I was not simply reacting but orchestrating. Tonight, I said quietly, was the last time they get to hurt her or me, without consequences. Liam watched me, eyes soft but steady. If you go down this path, there's no going back. I turned to him fully. There's nothing back there worth returning to. I walked outside again, forcing a smile as I helped Emma cut the cake. Parents of other children praised the decorations, the setup, the mini stage, and I nodded like a polite hostess, while my mind spun with plans, scripts, strategies. By the time the last guest left and Emma fell asleep in Liam's arms, I already knew the bones of the performance. It would be called The Perfect American Family. It would feature my parents, Jason, his wife, and me, each of us playing ourselves without realizing it until it was too late. I imagined the pitch I would give them: a groundbreaking theater project exploring real family dynamics, an artistic documentary, an intimate portrayal of modern American families. They would eat it up. They loved anything that made them look important, but underneath the artistry would lie the truth I had buried for years: the favoritism, the lies, the emotional starvation, the cruelty of being invisible. And when opening night arrived, they would see themselves raw, exposed, unfiltered under a spotlight bright enough to burn. I whispered to myself again, feeling the calm anchor me. Breathe in, breathe out, deeper and deeper, into purpose. The last light in the backyard flickered out. The empty chairs were still there like silent witnesses of a crime. I looked at them one last time and whispered, next year you will not be empty. Not because they would come, but because I was about to rewrite the script and force them to face the truth they had always ignored. The morning after Emma's birthday, the empty chairs were still haunting my backyard, like abandoned props from a play no one wanted to watch. Liam had already taken them inside, but the imprint they left in my mind lingered. I woke up before dawn, my pulse sharp, my thoughts sharper, as if someone had flipped on a spotlight in my skull and whispered, "It's showtime." I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. The document was blank, a white void waiting for its first line. My fingers hovered above the keys. The title came to me immediately: The Perfect American Family, a documentary performance. The words tasted like poison and honey at the same time. As a theater teacher and director in Los Angeles, I'd written dozens of scripts, but never one like this. This wouldn't be fiction. This would be a mirror, a beautifully lit, unforgiving mirror. I breathed in slow and deep, letting the tension settle in my chest before I whispered the mantra that always sharpened me. Breathe in, breathe out, deeper and deeper. Let the truth write itself. And then I began. I wrote an outline describing the project as an exploration of how modern American families construct identity, legacy, and emotional narratives. I used the kind of academic phrasing that made people feel intelligent just by reading it, My parents would lap it up. Jason, too. They loved anything that sounded like a TED Talk. I wrote about intergenerational storytelling, performative affection, the mythology of success. I wrote about the dynamics of parental favoritism in high-achieving households. I wrote about how the stories we were told as children become scripts we unconsciously repeat. Everything true, everything devastating. And yet, to the untrained eye, it was simply art. By the time Liam wandered in rubbing his eyes, I had 5 pages drafted. "You've been up all night?" he asked. "Yes," I said, not looking away from the screen. "Look." He leaned over, reading. I watched the muscles in his face shift. Curiosity, concern, then something like awe. "You're not pulling any punches," he murmured. "Why should I?" They never did. He sat across from me, elbows on the table. "Aurelia, do you really think your parents will agree to this? They crave validation more than they crave oxygen," I said. "If they think this project will make them look cultured, enlightened, or socially conscious, they'll come running." And Jason can't stand being left out of anything. If the 3 of us are in it, he'll force his wife and daughter to join. "You'll see." Liam hesitated. "And what about Emma? How does all this help her?" Everything in me softened for a moment. Because once this is over, she'll know the truth isn't a monster. She won't grow up thinking silence is love. He nodded, understanding, even the parts I didn't say out loud. Later that afternoon, I called a meeting with my assistant director, Maya Rivera, a 26-year-old firecracker of a woman with espresso-colored eyes and a mind so sharp it could cut glass. Maya was the kind of person who saw through people instantly. Probably why I had hired her. I trusted very few people, but she was one of them. Maya always said she joined my team because she liked directors who were a little dangerous. When she walked into my studio, a renovated warehouse with exposed brick and a floor coated in decades of spilled paint, she took one look at my expression and said, "Okay, who died?" "Not yet," I said, handing her the outline, "but someone's about to lose their reputation." She shot me a look somewhere between humor and alarm. As she skimmed the document, her eyebrows rose higher and higher. "This is Aurelia. This is not just theater, this is therapy with lighting design." "Exactly. And you want your family to star in it?" "Yes." She dropped into a chair, staring at me like I'd just announced I planned to juggle chainsaws. "You realize this could explode." "Good," I said. "People don't like being confronted with the truth in front of an audience." "Perfect," I repeated. Maya crossed her legs, tapping the script against her knee. "This is revenge." I tilted my head, considering this is truth. "Uh-huh," she said dryly. "And I'm guessing you're totally objective right now." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She sighed. "Okay, what do you need me to do?" "Help me run rehearsals, help me shape the scenes, and help me stay honest." "Honest," she echoed. "Yes," I said quietly, "because if I veer into cruelty, stop me. I want justice, not a massacre." Maya nodded, though her eyes stayed wary. "All right, I'm in. But Aurelia, I hope you're ready to see everything you've avoided for 20 years. I met her gaze evenly. I was born ready. By evening, I had polished the script enough to send it. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with the intoxicating rush of purpose. I knew this feeling well. It was the same sensation I got before the opening night of a play I believed in deeply. A hum under my skin. A current. I drafted a message in our family group chat. "Mom, Dad, Jason. I'm working on a new documentary theater project exploring real family dynamics in modern American homes. It's artistic, intimate, and potentially groundbreaking. The 3 of you came to mind immediately. I'd love for our family to participate. It would involve interviews, group discussions, and some lightly scripted scenes based on real memories. Let me know if you're interested." Then I hit send and waited. 5 minutes later, the typing bubbles appeared. It was my mother first. "Oh, darling, this sounds wonderful. We'd love to be part of something so meaningful." Meaningful, yes, just not in the way she imagined. My father followed. "Sounds fascinating. We should support your work. Count us in." Of course, they loved performing support more than giving it. Jason's message came last. "If it's about family, I'm absolutely in. Our story needs to be told, right?" I stared at the words, laughing under my breath. "Right," he said, as if he hadn't spent his whole life rewriting history to make himself the hero. Liam peeked over my shoulder. "Well, that was quick." "They're predictable," I said. "That's what makes this so easy." The next day, I invited my parents and Jason's family to the studio for our first meeting. I wanted them to see the space, the stage, the lighting grids, the cameras, the circle of chairs that signaled both therapy and interrogation. When they confirmed they were coming, a strange calm settled over me. A clarity. I whispered my grounding ritual. Breathe in, breathe out, deeper and deeper. Step into your power. Because once they entered my studio, it would begin the performance, the reckoning, the truth. And this time, I would be the one directing the story. I arrived at the studio 2 hours earlier than everyone else. I told myself it was to prepare the lighting and arrange the chairs. But the truth was simpler. I needed the silence. The echoing emptiness soothed me in ways I didn't like admitting. The walls, exposed brick, tall and severe, had witnessed many confessions from actors over the years. Today they would witness mine. I walked across the scuffed wooden floor, touching the back of each chair in the circle. 12 chairs arranged like a ritual, like a séance, like we were calling something dead back into the room, even though it had never really left. As I adjusted the lights, I whispered my grounding mantra: breathe in, breathe out, deeper and deeper, focus on the truth. The room warmed around me. My pulse steadied. This wasn't just a rehearsal. It was an excavation. At 9 sharp, the studio door opened and my mother's voice floated in before she did. Aurelia, this place is gorgeous. Linda Hart always entered a room like it was a stage. Posture, tall chin, lifted perfume, announcing her. Before her words did. My mother, a former beauty pageant contestant turned real estate socialite, had perfected the art of looking like she cared deeply about everything, while actually caring about almost nothing. Behind her came my father. George, quieter, but no less polished. He offered a stiff smile, sharp and polite, the kind of smile that always felt like a judgment. Jason arrived last, of course, because Jason believed entrances mattered. He walked in with confidence built from decades of applause. His wife, Grace, followed closely behind. Grace was new to the family compared to the rest of us. She had married Jason 5 years ago. She was kind in a soft, apologetic way, someone who tried to read the temperature of a room before deciding how to breathe. I had always suspected she lived slightly intimidated by Jason's gravitational pull. Their daughter, Lily, my niece, clung to Grace's skirt, watching me with wide, shy eyes. I smiled at her gently, even though a small part of me twisted when I remembered. She has $1 million waiting for her. Emma has nothing from them. Welcome, I said. My voice sounded controlled, warm, professional. I had learned long ago how to speak like someone who was not breaking on the inside. My mother swept into the room as if she owned it. This is just marvelous, dear. Do you rent this space? I own it, I replied. Oh, she said, surprised. That's impressive. Impressive. Never I'm proud of you. Always an evaluation. Never affection. Jason slung an arm around my shoulders in a mock brotherly hug. Ready to make some art, sis. I've been ready for 30 years, I said lightly. He didn't catch the meaning. He never did. I gathered everyone in the circle of chairs. Maya, my assistant director, sat beside me, notebook ready, dark eyes alert. She was the only person in this room who knew the truth of what we were about to begin. I stood. Thank you for being here. Today is our first session. Think of it as a rehearsal, a discussion, and a reflection all in one. My father chuckled like therapy. I smiled politely. If that's the word that comes to mind, that's fine. My mother laughed. Oh, George, don't joke. We don't need therapy. Maya shot me a look. I gave the slightest nod. Not yet, I continued. To start, we'll do something simple. Each of you will share a childhood memory that shaped your understanding of family. Nothing too heavy yet. I emphasized, yet they didn't notice. I began with myself. My memory, I said, is being 8 years old. I had a school play. I played a star in the night sky. The teacher said I was the only one who memorized all my lines. I waited for you. I gestured toward my parents, to show up in the audience. Silence. You didn't come, I finished, voice. Steady, you said later that Jason had a basketball game, and that was more important. My mother blinked. Oh, sweetheart, that was ages ago. Still my memory, I said calmly. Now who wants to go next? Jason's hand shot up. Of course I've got one. He leaned forward, smiling like he was telling a charming anecdote. I remember when I was 11. I scored the winning goal at the regionals. Mom and Dad rushed onto the field, cheering like crazy. Dad lifted me onto his shoulders. Best day ever. That wasn't a memory. That was a victory lap. My father beamed. That was a proud moment. My mother clasped her hands. You were always so talented, Jason. Something acidic burned in my chest. I inhaled slowly. Breathe in, breathe out. Deeper and deeper, don't react. Maya scribbled notes furiously. Grace, I asked gently, would you like to share something? Grace hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward Jason, then toward me. I don't know if I should. Anything you share is welcome, I said. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Okay, mine is the first time I met your parents. They told Jason right in front of me that he could do better than me, and that I should be grateful he chose me. My mother inhaled sharply through her nose. We never said that. Grace's voice was soft but firm. You did exactly like that. My mother's cheeks flushed. Well, if we did, it was only because we wanted the best for Jason. Of course, the best for Jason. Always Jason. I nodded at Grace, giving her silent thanks for her courage. Mom, I said calmly, your turn. Oh. She sat taller in her chair. All right, let's see. A memory of family. Ah, I remember when you were 12. Aurelia and you produced that little backyard show. You forced all the neighborhood kids to act in it. I stared, forced. Well, yes, she said. You've always had a controlling streak, darling. It was cute back then. I felt Maya stiffen beside me. My memory, I said evenly, was that you didn't come to that show either. My mother blinked. Was that the same day as Jason's piano recital? Every day was the same day as one of Jason's events, I said. My father cleared his throat. Let's not make this dramatic. I smiled coldly. We're literally in a theater. Silence. Good. Dad, I said, your turn. He adjusted his glasses. I remember when Jason got his first internship at the law firm. We celebrated with a big dinner. It felt like he was on his way to something important. I waited. Do you remember anything about me, I asked. He looked confused. Well, you were doing theater things. Theater things, I repeated softly. Maya's pen scratched faster. A slow, heavy ache pressed against my ribs. But underneath the ache was something else. Something like awakening. I took a breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. Deeper and deeper. Step into your truth. Thank you all for sharing, I said. Now we're going to do an exercise, one that actors use to access honest emotion. My mother smiled eagerly. Oh, how fun! Everyone, I instructed, turn your chairs so they face one another. Good now. We'll reenact one memory from each person's life, using exact words they remember being said. They froze. Jason laughed nervously. Wait, what? It's a standard exercise, I lied. It wasn't not like this. We'll start with mine, I continued. The school play. My parents shifted uneasily. My father scratched his neck. I swallowed the pain and let the director in me rise. I positioned my mother on one side, my father next to her, Jason across from them. Say the words you said to me that night, I said, about why you didn't show up. My mother's voice tightened, Aurelia. We don't remember the exact words. Say what you think you said. She inhaled. We're sorry, darling, but Jason's game was important. You know how talented he was. There it was again. Jason, this Jason that, Jason the sun we all had to orbit. I nodded. Good now. Dad, he cleared his throat. I'm sure we said something like, we'll come next time. But you didn't, I said. He flinched. Maya leaned forward, eyes bright with alertness, sensing the shift in the air. And Jason, I said, did you ever say anything to me that night? Jason shrugged. Probably, don't pout, sis. I exhaled long and slow. There. Now we could begin. Thank you, I said. Now sit down, we'll move to the next memory. But as they obeyed, something changed. My mother's smile was thinner. My father's shoulders slumped. Grace's eyes glistened with sympathy. Jason, for the first time, looked unsure. Good. The stage lights hummed softly, their warmth wrapping around me like armor. I had stepped into the role I was born to play. I wasn't their forgotten daughter anymore. I was the director, the one in control, the one calling the cues. Let's continue, I said. And the past began to reenact itself, one painful scene at a time. Rehearsal 3 was the night everything changed. By then, everyone had grown strangely comfortable in the studio. My parents brought their reusable water bottles like this was a Pilates class. Grace brought snacks. Jason walked around touching props like he was auditioning for a role he already believed he'd won. They didn't realize the stage lights were softening their armor, warming their defenses, until cracks began to form. They didn't see how Maya lowered the room temperature just slightly, so breath felt a little sharper, how she adjusted lighting angles so shadows stretched longer across their faces. She understood exactly what I wanted. Tonight I wasn't just directing, I was excavating. The session began with our usual circle. Everyone sat. No one spoke. The air felt thicker than usual, as if memory had mass and weight of its own. I stood in the center. Tonight I said we're going deeper. My mother clapped her hands lightly. Oh, wonderful, like an acting challenge. In a sense, I said. My father frowned. What exactly do you mean by deeper? I looked at each of them slowly, deliberately. Tonight we move from childhood memories to adult consequences. Silence, a sharp one. Jason folded his arms. Define consequences. Family, I replied. They shifted uncomfortably, and that alone gave me power. Before we begin, I continued, I want everyone to relax, just follow my voice. My mother blinked. Surprised relaxation. Yes, I said, a technique used in documentary theater to access truth. Everyone, feet flat on the floor, hands on your lap, eyes closed. They obeyed. Even Jason, especially Jason. I softened my tone, letting it wrap around them like warm fog. Breathe in. Breathe out. Deeper and deeper. Allow the room to fade. Let the truth rise to the surface. Grace's shoulders dropped. My mother's chin sank slightly. My father exhaled shakily. Even Jason unclenched his jaw. I had them? Good, I whispered. Now open your eyes. They did slowly, as if waking into a world they didn't fully recognize. Tonight's exercise, I said, is role reversal. Jason groaned. Oh God. Quiet, I said calmly. You'll take turns playing each other, reenacting pivotal moments from adulthood, moments where choices were made, moments where someone grew or someone was wounded. My mother shifted. I'm not sure. It's part of the process. It feels confrontational. That's the point. Maya watched me with a tight jaw. She had seen me direct challenging scenes before, but this was different. This wasn't acting. This was surgery. I pulled out a stack of printed scene cards, each one describing a specific moment from our lives. I held up the first card. Scene 1. The night of Emma's first fever. My mother stiffened. This scene, I said, is from 2 years ago. Emma had a fever of 103. I called you both. You didn't answer. Later, you texted saying you were out at a dinner party. My mother protested instantly. We didn't know it was serious. You didn't ask, I replied. Jason smirked. Come on, Aurelia, they're not doctors. Neither am I said evenly. But I showed up for you when you were sick. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Now I said roles. Jason, you play me mom. You play yourself. Dad, you play yourself. Grace, you observe. Jason groaned seriously. Begin. He stood reluctantly, pretending to hold an imaginary phone. Mom, he said flatly. Dad, can you come? Emma's sick. My mother gave a dismissive wave. Oh, honey, we're at dinner. Take care of it. Jason shrugged dramatically. Sure, fine. I stepped forward. Stop. They froze. That was not the emotional truth, I said. Try again. Jason scowled. What do you want? Honesty. The room tensed. I walked to him and placed my hand lightly on his shoulder. His instinct was to pull away, but he didn't. Jason, I whispered, breathe. His chest rose against mine. Breathe in. Breathe out. Deeper and deeper. Let your defenses drop. He swallowed hard. Again, I said. This time when he spoke, his voice cracked barely, but enough. Mom, Dad, please, Emma's really sick. My mother flinched. My father looked at the floor. Better, I murmured. Continue. My mother's voice trembled. We didn't think. Cut, I said softly. She stopped mid-sentence, eyes glistening. Good, she was finally seeing herself. The next scene card was worse. Scene 2. The night you gave Lily a $100,000 savings account and didn't attend Emma's birthday. Grace gasped softly. My mother's face drained of color. Jason stiffened. Aurelia, don't. This happened, I said. We're reenacting it. My father's voice wavered. You thought nothing I said, you just acted. The room went silent. I handed the card to Maya to read aloud. Her steady voice filled the space. Reenact your reactions to the moment the family celebrated Lily with $1 million gift while ignoring Emma's birthday entirely. My mother's hands shook. You're making us into villains. No, I said quietly. You're seeing yourselves. Jason stood abruptly. This is insane. No one does this to their family. You did, I replied. You just did it quietly. He stared at me, jaw tight, face pale. Grace spoke unexpectedly. Jason, sit down. The air shifted. Even Jason seemed startled by her tone. He sat. I continued. Now let's reenact. My father whispered, I don't remember the words. Then say what you think you meant. My mother swallowed. We didn't know Emma's birthday meant that much. I almost laughed. She's your granddaughter. We sent a card. A card, I echoed. You sent a text that said HBD. Maya exhaled sharply. Grace covered her mouth. I stepped closer to my parents. Say what you meant, I said softly. It's the only way this works. My mother's lip trembled. My father's eyes glistened. Finally, he whispered, we didn't think you needed us. I froze, not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. My mother nodded weakly. You were always the strong one. Jason always needed more. There it was. The truth beneath the truth. Not favoritism, not malice, but blindness born of convenience. You never asked what I needed, I said. My voice broke despite me. You assumed. My parents looked at me for the first time, not as an extension of Jason, not as the spare child, not as the independent one who never complained, but as someone hurt, someone human. My father whispered, we failed you. Jason stared at them, stunned. Grace looked away. Tears in her eyes, and something inside me trembled. Not victory, not relief. Something quieter, more dangerous. Recognition. I signaled Maya. She dimmed the lights until the room looked like a confession booth. Everyone, I said, close your eyes. They did. Breathe in, breathe out, deeper and deeper. Let the weight of what you heard settle. The room felt fragile, like glass under pressure. Now I continued, one by one, you will say what you're afraid to say out loud. My mother whispered, first voice breaking. I'm afraid you hate us. My father followed. I'm afraid I never knew how to love you right, Grace said. I'm afraid I let this family shape me into someone I'm not. Jason whispered last. I'm afraid I'm not the hero I pretend to be. Silence swallowed the room whole. I stood, breath shaking, heart pounding. Not because I planned to break them, but because I finally saw them shatter on their own. And tomorrow, I would decide what pieces were worth saving. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are countless real-life betrayals, twists, and revenge stories waiting for you in the next episodes. Opening night felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with my toes hanging over the drop and no wind to tell me which direction to fall. The theater was filled, buzzing, humming alive. Colleagues from the arts district, a few of Liam's filmmaker friends, some of my students' local critics, even strangers who heard rumors about a radical new form of documentary family theater. They didn't know the half of it. Lights glowed warm against the velvet curtains. The air was thick with anticipation, perfume, and quiet tension. Liam moved through the audience with his camera capturing everything discreetly. Maya stood backstage, headset on, fingers trembling with a mixture of nerves and readiness. And then there was my family backstage with me. My parents were dressed in carefully chosen outfits, my mother in a champagne dress, my father in a navy blazer. Jason wore a tailored suit that screamed success. Grace kept adjusting the sleeves of her blouse, clearly rattled. Little Lily sat with a coloring book, unaware of the storm about to break. My mother touched her hair. Are you sure the audience will appreciate a personal piece like this? They will, I said. Jason smirked. Just as long as you don't turn this into an expose, huh? I didn't reply because I no longer needed to. The truth was already vibrating under the surface, waiting for its cue. 5 minutes to showtime. I gathered my family in the backstage circle we had practiced in rehearsals. Each of them took their place automatically. A learned ritual, an unspoken contract. My voice softened. Close your eyes, I said. We always begin the same way. They obeyed, even Jason. I stepped into the center of the circle and whispered the words that had become both a comfort and a threat. Breathe in, breathe out, deeper and deeper. Let honesty anchor you tonight. My mother exhaled shakily. My father nodded with eyes closed. Grace's shoulders dropped. Jason. His jaw worked, but he stayed. Good. Tonight, I continued. You're not playing roles. You're not pretending. You are yourselves. That is the entire point. Jason opened one eye. Yeah, but some parts we can soften, right? I mean, theater isn't reality. I looked at him unblinking. This one is. He closed his eye again. The stage manager called over the headset, stand by for lights. and cue family. Showtime. As we stepped onto the stage, applause rose like a wave. Rows of faces stared back at us, curious and expectant. The lights overhead warmed my skin, grounding me. I'd spent my whole life in this glow. But tonight I wasn't an actress or a director. I was the architect of truth. The show began with a narration I had written, spoken by me. This is a play about families. Not the ones on holiday cards, not the ones in commercials, but the real ones. Messy, glorious, fractured, and stitched together by memory. Behind us, the projector lit up with childhood photos. Some of Jason, many of me. Photos my parents probably hadn't looked at in years. We sat in our circle, just like rehearsal. But this time the world was watching. First, we reenacted Scene 1, the childhood memories. The audience laughed when my mother misremembered details, sighed when Jason bragged too sincerely, and fell silent when I recounted my school play that no one attended. Then came Scene 2. The sickness. The missed calls. The absence. I could feel the audience shifting, some uncomfortable, some moved, some whispering. Scene 3 was the first earthquake. The $1 million savings account, when the giant screen displayed the photo of the lavish party for Lily. The murmurs in the audience turned sharp and stunned. Then the screen went dark. Spotlights narrowed to just my parents. Reenacted, I said on stage, voice steady. My mother trembled. We made a mistake, my father whispered. We didn't think you needed us. A ripple moved through the theater's sympathy shock, something electric. Jason stepped forward, voice rising. Okay, this is ridiculous. We don't need to humiliate ourselves in front of... The audience fell silent. This was the moment, the fault line. I faced him fully. Humiliation comes from hiding what everyone already sees. He blinked, stunned. What does that mean? It means, I said, stepping closer, that you've controlled the family story for so long, you don't even realize how much harm it caused. His face hardened. This isn't about harm, Aurelia. This is your obsession with the past. Is it, I asked? Or is it your obsession with being the hero? My words hit him like a slap. The audience inhaled sharply. He looked to our parents for backup, but for the first time in years, they didn't jump in. My mother covered her face. Jason, stop! My father said quietly. Let her speak. Jason stared at them, betrayed. I turned to the audience, voice steady and resonant. This family has always been built on a single narrative. Jason shines, and the rest of us adjust our eyes. But the truth is, brightness can blind, and sometimes people mistake blindness for love. The audience murmured, the weight of the sentence settling across them like dust. Jason stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear, but the microphone caught every word. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Making me the villain, I whispered back. I'm not making you anything. You're revealing yourself. His face flushed, anger, fear, something raw. The next scene was the most difficult, the confession circle from rehearsal. I hadn't intended to perform it live originally, but right now it felt necessary, fated. Everyone, I said to my family on stage. Close your eyes. They hesitated. Please, I added softly. For once, trust me. My mother closed her eyes first, then my father. Grace followed. Jason resisted, then sighed, and complied. The audience leaned in. I began the whisper, soft as falling dust. Breathe in, breathe out. Deeper and deeper, let the truth rise. The room seemed to pulse with the rhythm. Now, I said, say out loud the fear you whispered in rehearsal. My mother's lip trembled. I'm afraid you hate us. A hush fell over the theater. My father's voice cracked. I'm afraid. I never knew how to love you right. Grace spoke, tears slipping down her cheek. I'm afraid I let this family shape my worth. Jason didn't speak. He shook his head, jaw locked. I took his hand gently. Something I hadn't done in 20 years, Jason. Say it. He exhaled, a long breaking sound. Then finally, I'm afraid. I'm not the hero I pretend to be. Gasps from the audience. Silence. A breath held by hundreds. The stage lights softened. The tension melted. I turned to the crowd, and my throat tightened. I'm afraid that loving them means losing myself. The words shook through me. For the first time, my parents looked at me, really saw me. Not the strong one, not the quiet one, not the forgotten daughter, but a woman standing in her truth. My mother stood suddenly, reaching for me. Aurelia, she whispered. We were wrong. My father nodded, tears on his face. We failed you, and we failed Emma. Jason wiped his eyes angrily. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, I whispered, but it needed to. The audience rose slowly, applause building like a storm roaring through the theater until it shook the stage beneath our feet. But I barely heard it. I was staring at my family, and they were staring at me, not with denial, not with forced affection, but with something painfully new: accountability. After the show, when the theater emptied and the lights cooled, my family stayed behind. My mother approached first. "Can we start over?" she whispered. My father nodded. "Tell us what you need. We'll try. We're old, but we can learn." I looked at them. These flawed, fragile humans I had spent a lifetime fearing and longing for. "Start by showing up," I said softly. "For Emma. For me. Not with money, with presence." "We will," my mother said. "We promise." Jason stepped forward. "Aurelia, I raised a hand. "I forgive you. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting." He nodded, eyes red. "I understand." Grace hugged me gently, gratefully. Then my parents left the theater holding each other's hands, shoulders heavy, but hopeful. Jason followed, quieter than I had ever seen him. Liam came to me last. He wrapped his arms around me, warm and steady. "You did it," he whispered. "No," I said, leaning into him. "We did." The stage lights dimmed to black, but inside me, for the first time in decades, a light turned on.